Hello and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Srikanth, joining you live from India's startup capital, Bangalore, and we have a power-packed show lined up for you over the next 20 minutes.
Krishna Kumar coming to you live from ET Now's Mumbai studios. First up, a check on all that's making headlines here at ET Now Startup Central. Mobile wallet player Paytm's plans to go global have hit a roadblock as current FEMA and RBI regulations don't allow it to undertake overseas transactions. Paytm had tied up with Alibaba's Alipay to offer users to pay for Uber rides abroad using the Paytm wallet. And funding dries up. We get you more details on our weekly funding meter powered by Venture Intelligence. Even as deals in the other areas dry up, the online education field is not shy of funds. Find out why later on the show. If you're a startup, social media can be a great tool for brand building and reaching out to customers, but getting the communication strategy right is not an easy task. An expert panel at Social Media Week decodes their experience to share what works best online. And Thomas Perkins, one of the founding fathers of modern venture capital investing, died in California. He was aged 84. Straight to our top story. Mobile wallet player Paytm's plans to go global have hit a roadblock, and that's because the current FEMA and the RBI regulations do not allow it to undertake overseas transaction. Paytm, remember, had tied up with Alibaba's Alipay to offer users to pay for Uber rides abroad using the Paytm wallet. Chandra, I'll let it over to you to explain what exactly is going on over here.
That's right, Krishna. You know, the whole point of Paytm's tie-up with Alipay and Uber, it was a very high-profile announcement that they made, and they said that you could use your Paytm wallet to really pay for Uber rides abroad. You know, so that was going to be Paytm's major overseas push. But now they have come out and clarified, stating that this will not be feasible anymore because under the existing FEMA as well as RBI guidelines, the Paytm wallet cannot be used for any form of overseas or offshore transactions. So this is a clarification that they have given at this point. We have, of course, reached out to Paytm as well, but they don't have anything more to add beyond the clarification. But Krishna, this overseas push was a major element, you know, to their payment bank operations as well. So we really have to wait and see what the course will be going forward, if they will apply soon for the requisite permissions from RBI, and you know, if the existing guidelines even allow this. But for now, it's very clear that, you know, if you were planning to use your Paytm wallet abroad to perhaps pay for your Uber rides for any other transaction powered by also Alipay, that's certainly not happening for now.
Well, certainly not happening, but for now. But Chandra, I only hope better sense prevails as we move forward. And but for now, moving on here on the show, let's take a look at our weekly funding meter powered by Venture Intelligence. And as far as the deals in the week gone by, the period from June 6th to June 10th is concerned, 8 deals worth $21 million have been struck, and that number does not exactly paint a pretty picture. Top VC investments for the week include the likes of Now Floats, which raised about $9 million, QMath, which raised about $4 million, and BroX, which raised about $3 million. So those are the notable deals in the June 6th to June 10th time period. Other deals in the same time period includes TVS Auto Solutions acquiring 3 startups for a total of 75 crore rupees. So that's a good piece of news coming in as a silver lining to the larger dark clouds in the funding meter. And to understand that better, we have Baiju Ravindran, founder of Baiju's, and of course Arun Natarajan, founder of Venture Intelligence, joining us live here on ET Now Startup Central. I'm going to take it across to Arun Natarajan first. Arun, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us over here. Tell us how has the week gone by, as far as funding is concerned?
Oh yeah, the week is a quite mid-level kind of week that we have seen. Not too bad and not too great compared to the flow that we have seen. So, we have seen investments in fintech and education tech companies continue to happen. So things are not as bad as we saw a couple of weeks back.
Right. In fact, Krishna, this discussion is going to be focused on the edtech space because that's what's really hot and happening as far as the deal segment are concerned. Even as consumer internet companies are seeing interest dry up, it's really the edtech space that's getting a lot of traction, and that's why we have Baiju Ravindran with us. He's the founder of Baiju, a very popular test prep platform which has now morphed into the K+12 segment, pretty much handling students of every age right now. He's also raised the largest ever funding in the edtech space. That was like what, $75 million, Baiju?
In the last round.
In the last round, okay. But before I come to Baiju's, Arun, if you can quickly give us a roundup of why the edtech space is so hot and happening, and what's different this time around, the kind of investors entering the edtech space.
Indeed, Chandra. So clearly we have seen, education is the only significant industry this year where the investments have already crossed the total investments in the 12 months of 2015. So clearly this space is indeed very hot. And Baiju's, as you rightly said, has raised $70 million Series C round led by Sofina, a Belgium-based investor, and the company, as Baiju was saying, has raised almost $100 million. So this is really setting the pace as an industry. Interestingly, this kind of investment is spread across sectors. So obviously Baiju's comes from the test preparation tutorial category. We have also seen companies in the assessment and certification kind of companies like EduPristine or Simply Learn also attract investments, quite significant ones. So we also seeing the regulated segment. Private equity investors are returning to the K-12 schools category. We have seen CX Partners invest as much as $60 million into Enspira, which is in the part of the Narayana Group in Hyderabad. And then we have seen the Jain Group in Bangalore raise $35 million from a specialist education infrastructure fund. So we are seeing investments all around in the education space.
Right. Arun, in fact, let me take it to Baiju's. Test prep, K-12, nothing new about it. These businesses have been there in the last decade in various forms. I mean, you had Evron, you had Educom, you have traditional players like, your Brilliant Tutorials or, the institutes in Kota. What has really set Baiju's apart, and why are investors, from Sofina to Sequoia to Moondak Pai really interested in Baiju's? What would you say is, the differentiating factor here?
Okay, I have a very simple answer for that. Almost all the companies which you have named, they are all still addressing, or they addressed not necessarily the most important stakeholder in what we call learning. So if you ask me who are the stakeholders, so we have teachers, we have parents, we have students. Maybe we have been able to differentiate by targeting students, so in business language whom we call the end users, or the real beneficiaries of real learning. Now unfortunately still most of the system is completely based on learning driven by fear of exams and not necessarily because you like learning.
Right.
So we decided to kind of create a new segment by focusing on students. So if you see all our messages, it's all about making students falling in love with learning, by making them understand the concepts, by generating the curiosity, which is the fundamental need for anyone to start learning better.
Right.
So initially we were very, very successful in test prep in its conventional format, but we have successfully transitioned to focus on the core part of the learning during the formative years, where you start feeling the subject, where you start figuring out what you are good at and what you like in common language, interests, as well as your capabilities.
Right. Krishna, makes you wish we had something like this in school.
Chandra, makes me wish a lot of things we had in school whenever I see a startup come up with an interesting solution. But this one certainly, you're absolutely spot on as far as that is concerned. I'm just going to take this discussion across to Arun Natarajan. Arun, week after week we've been talking about how the funding tap is drying up, and you said $21 million, 8 deals. You're saying it's like a middling kind of week. Are we finding a new normal as far as the weekly funding meter itself is concerned, considering that a $21 million is considered a middling week as far as funding is concerned in the Indian startup ecosystem?
Absolutely. We really started the year with a very roaring pace, and this has come down because of the e-commerce segment and the consumer segment and a lot of vibes that we are getting from Silicon Valley. But like we are talking about, fintech and edge tech now, we are finding diversification by investors across industries, and that will take its time to spread out during the rest of the year, I think.
Right. Byju's, just want to understand the way you monetize this. I mean, how many app downloads did you say you had? Like, has it crossed 1 million, or where are you now?
Since 8 months from launch, we have crossed 4 million downloads.
Right. And how do you monetize it? I mean, when I download it, is it free? What happens later? Is it, a freemium model where it's initially free and I pay? How does it work? How do you make your money?
Yeah, it's a freemium model where some things are always free, but some core part of the learning, which kind of, which I call learning. The testing is always free. It's available for the first 15 to 30 days, after which students get into an annual subscription mode. But we make sure that before they get into the annual subscription, they understand what the product can do for them. We make sure that they like what they see in the app, and that's resulted in such a very high conversion. So more than 4 million downloads, 1.6 lakh students already on subscription. We are doing 25,000 students on a monthly basis, increasing at 10% month on month. So these are the numbers which are very exciting. But if you ask me, compared to the number of students who are in the K-12, India is still the largest K-12 segment in the world with close to 260 million students.
Right.
The numbers which we are doing today is still a very, very small number.
Right.
So scope for improvement over here in terms of reaching out is so we can do this for many more years to come.
Right. Byju's, in fact, I think Arun Natarajan also has a question for you. Arun, a question that you have for Byju's at this point?
Yes, indeed, the kind of investors Byju's has attracted is very, very interesting. First they raised money from RN Capital, which is a family office, then, followed by one of the most well-known venture investors, Sequoia Capital, and now they've gone into a private equity investor of international repute like Sofina. So my question is, what is the learning that he has had by tapping these various kinds of investors, and would he recommend such an approach to other entrepreneurs too?
Right. Arun wants to know the learning that you've had from various kind of investors, because you started with Arun, you moved on to Sequoia, and then you went on to Sofina, which is like a major international investor. The learnings, and if you would recommend a similar pattern for other startups that are in the process of really raising funding.
Okay. One thing which I want to point out here is we raised money only after figuring out a clear model in terms of we spent almost 3.5 years creating a very powerful product, compelling enough for students to learn on their own. Now we are talking about 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. They normally don't like learning. It's not like the video games or the movies which is very close to them. So we have taken care of that by spending a lot of time researching, figuring out what is the best way to teach a certain subject, and also giving it in a format which they like. Now the investors came on board by the time we had a clear model, a revenue and a model which is making an impact, which anyway results in high profit. So they came on board recently. Now we have selected investors who like the segment, who've been active investors in the segment outside India. So not necessarily getting into the segment because suddenly they see a lot of action in EdTech, because some of us have raised a lot of money in the last few months. So it's very important to get investors who understand the segment, who are excited the segment, so they can be real partners.
Right.
So they've been really good partners in the short span of time which we've been together.
Right. I guess a lot of important learnings there for startups, even in terms of the investors they choose, Krishna. But I guess that brings us to the end of the special deep dive today.
Absolutely, Chandra. I couldn't agree more with you. 2 lessons. 1 is that get your basics right, and 2, choose the right investors for the right reasons. That's the word. That's the message as far as Byju's is concerned. Thank you so much, Byju Ravindran, and of course, Arun Natarajan of Venture Intelligence for taking time out to be with us here on ET Now Startup Central. Moving on, Chandra, on the show. If you are a startup, social media can be a great tool for brand building and reaching out to customers, but getting the communication strategy right is not an easy task. An expert panel at Social Media Week is decoding their experiences and sharing what works best online and the tips on how much of online branding is good branding. Take a look.
Where we started Fresh Menu, we really felt that all we need to do is ensure that we cook good food and we deliver good food. But there was, so that's a very simple statement, simple problem statement, very hard to deliver at the back end. And we got down to starting it. We knew we wanted to build a digital online brand. Again, very easy to say on paper that was part of the pitch, and then we got down to ground to really go execute that. We're still executing, and there's a long way to go. The challenge really is food is a category where people want everything done in 30 minutes. And when you're hungry, you don't really want to listen to brand story, how good the food is and how good the picture looks like. So it first starts with making sure that your core business is good. But we have used social media predominantly to talk about really, how do we really make that food good? How do we make it interesting? Talk about the stories behind the food. We engage with users. I think do all the right things one blog at a time. It's not easy. You also get a lot of people who say that this is not right, that is not right. On the way, learn to listen to people, apologize, take that feedback, fix it in your business, go back to them. I think what did help us is we really reached out to customers who are not happy, solve their issues, apologize, and next time their experience is much better. They came back and said, wow, that works.
So do you get this? Do you get these paratha count tweets to you? Like I ordered 4 parathas, only 3 came home.
Not in that way, but I think we do get people saying that I expected XYZ and I got only half of it. So we need to work on that.
Yeah, and Ravi, as someone who's seen the entire spectrum of the problems that startups are trying to solve and the branding challenges they are up against, what do you think should be an approach for a founder who's trying to build a brand online, irrespective of whether the product or service is offline or online?
Yeah, so I think for startups, social media is a huge, obviously, platform that never existed, even like 5 years ago, effectively, right? If you needed to build a brand across India, forget it. I mean, somebody like Rashmi would have needed, I know she's raised a lot of money, but she needed 10x and maybe 10x time.
Moving on, Krishna, some sad piece of news coming in from Silicon Valley, because Thomas Perkins, considered one of the founding fathers of modern venture capital investing, died at the age of 84 in California. He has a background in Hewlett-Packard, but more importantly, he co-founded one of the most iconic Silicon Valley VC firms, that's KPCB, which counts Google and Amazon in its portfolio. He, of course, leaves a rich legacy behind, Krishna, and is surely an inspiration to scores of entrepreneurs and investors.
Chandra, I can't even imagine what venture capital investing would have been so many years ago. It's such at an evolved stage at this point in time. But anyways, moving on to the number of the day, and yet again, Chandra, it'll be me who will be taking it. And there's only one reason which you pointed out yesterday. It's because it's football, and the number we're crunching today is 76. Yes, 76. That is the number of goals scored at the Euro 2012 tournament. And obviously we're talking about this because Euro 2016 kicks off tonight. Keep in mind, in the last edition of the same tournament, 76 goals were scored. So all eyes on Euro 2016 because we've got some of the biggest stars in the world of football playing. Everybody from Cristiano Ronaldo to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, just about everybody who's anybody in the world of football. Some of the all-time great players who are taking the field, will be taking the field at Euro 2016. And 76, that number, Chandra, my guess is that might be much bigger this time around.
Hopefully it'll cross 100 and we'll have another number crunch. But with that, we come to the end of this edition of Startup Central. Here's wishing you have a good weekend and keep it with ET Now.
Absolutely.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.